Yo, it's your host again, Cybersonic Star 655, and today I'll be talking about Gravity Dive in Regravitified. Watch the logo in the top right to see what version I'm focusing on, and be sure to also check the Extreme Gear Labs Discord server for more wireless content. And with that, let's get into it. What is Gravity Dive? It's one of the basic mechanics of the game by holding the Gravity Dive button, which lets you fly in the air at high speeds, while using the Gravity Dive objects to help you extend the dive even further. In every stage there's at least one section in which you can use this mechanic. The control over gravity diving has been improved over the controls in the base game, but it still is inferior to that of the Wii mode. The control you have with the Wii mode in Zero Gravity is so good to the point that it doesn't force you into a specific direction while you're playing with a controller. It does make your angles and position during the startup very important and harder too because you're more limited. It actually slightly reminds me of Sonic Force's automation when it comes to its level design. Meteorbursts, in short, is hitting a gravity dive object to gain GP and get a burst of speed. The way you hit a gravity dive object is dependent on the positioning and angle you start from. That will determine if you will be able to do it optimally or not. Because of that, how you approach it is different from stage to stage. It will also determine how fast you will go through the dive sections, as I will show you in these examples. There are multiple ways you can hit gravity dive objects, which are left, right, up, down, and behind. Usually, left, right, down, or behind are the best ways to do it. In Meteortech premises, you either hit this one from the right, down, or behind. When I hit it from the right, you can see I need extra time to go from right to left, and it loses me a little time. But when I hit it from behind or down, I'm able to hit all the objects on the right faster and effectively. This applies to Botanical Kingdom, Snowy Kingdom, and Meteortech Sparkworks as well. In my opinion, Megalo Station, NASA Rush, and Security Corridor have the hardest meteor bursts because of the fact that not only do you need to position yourself well, but the gravity dive objects themselves are also moving. When we are talking about single player, for Megalo and Nightside, it should be fairly consistent at least. But for Security Corridor, it's inconsistent with how the fans move depending on how fast you go to the dive section. And because of the fact you can't always hit the objects as well. Being a device is the opposite of Meteortech premises. This is where you want to hit all the gravity dive objects only from left to right because you're performing what's called a meteor burst chaining, where you hit all the objects in fast succession. Dive objects can also be used to change directions if you have a proper position. Same can be said for 80s Boulevard's dive objects that can be used to change directions as well. Gigan Rocks is a rear one. In order to get the best outcome, you need to hit the first gravity dive object and then the last one, in order to skip the last ramp. Because if you try to hit them too late, you hit a lock where you can't hit the objects anymore. All the other stages are fairly simple, since you just have to move left and right to get your desired result. So then my tier list from hardest to easiest would be A. Security Corridor, Megalo Station, Nightside Rush, Gigan Rocks and 80s, B. Crimson Crater, Gigan Device, Meteortech Sparkworks, and Meteortech Premises, and 90s. And C. Astral Babylon, Snowy Kingdom, Botanical Kingdom, Tempest Waterway, Aquatic Capital, and Mobius Strip. Gravity rings are rings floating in the air that will spawn at the start of the dive. After the user has been gravity diving for a while, or if you hit a gravity dive object, when you hit a gravity ring, you gain extra GP and more speed. You can also use it to turn in the right direction. If you gravity control into a gravity ring, you can immediately start a dive as well, while holding the dive button. And being in the dive startup animation while hitting a gravity ring makes it so that you can skip the full animation. Since ring gears are fueled by rings, obviously when they gravity dive, their ring amount depletes, which also means they can dive in different places as well when there are rings. But when they hit dive objects or go through gravity rings, they do not gain rings and only gain speed. And their ring amount freezes for a quick second. Shooting Star is a gear that has an insta-dive, which basically means that it skips the startup animation. There are two gear changes that affect gravity diving, dive speed up and GP cost down. last few things to mention is that you can boost buffer out of a gravity dive. You can gravity control out of a dive. Once gravity dive objects become inactive, you have to avoid them because they become solid. And once they become solid, it means that you cannot hit them and they'll just be objects standing in your way. If you're in second place, gravity dive objects occasionally, like in Gigan Device, can mess you up because of the angle they can then send you in after the first player has already used them. You can also use gravity control to destroy gravity dive objects as well. And we've reached the end of the video. I talked about the basics of gravity dive, how Meteorbursts and gravity rings work, and the tidbits about shooting star and how ring gears work. And with that, see you guys in the next video.